Well, I'm glad to be here, be able to talk to you. It's a great event, like it. So I don't have like the same background that my speaker before. I didn't like earn any big competitions, win big competitions or stuff like that. But I'm a quant. So from my background, I've been working in the industry. I have founded another company before in the analytics space, and I'm now, together with my co-founders, founded atpar, and we are working on the ACTUS Protocol that works on digital financial assets on the blockchain. So I'm sure many of you know like the big problems with finance in general. I still want to kind of review some of these issues. So finance in general is about ledgers. It's about record keeping, right? It's about who owns what and when does that transact, right? So how come that it's so difficult in finance to actually make an international payment, right? How come that actually it takes 2 days, and that's already a big achievement now, we're in T+2 settlement of transactions. How come that, and what you see here, that picture is actually, and you can't see it very well, but it's actually a 3D model of the IT architecture in a big European bank. So those systems all represent ledgers, in which separate ledgers, right? How come that we have such a big problem in finance about keeping track of who owns exactly? So the problem is really finance is a set of fragmented ledgers. There is no common ledger where we actually agreed upon that this is where we keep record of who owns what and when. And when we talk about financial ecosystems, or when we talk about we want to build ecosystems, it's all about having the ledgers right, having a shared ledger, and having keeping track of that information, right? Now here in the community, blockchain in general, DLT, it's all about creating ecosystems. And when we speak about finance, it's about creating financial ecosystems, right? And let's just review quickly where we got from the very beginning now. We started out with actually creating the first piece that is necessary to create financial ecosystems. We have created shared ledgers with the introduction of blockchain, right? So for the first time now, we actually have one common piece of infrastructure where we all agree on that we keep track of who owns what. And that's actually a big deal, right? I mean, it really changes everything. It changes settlement times. It changes, we can now trade instruments, we can now exchange money within, let's say, hours, within minutes. It changes everything already, and that's a big achievement, and we should not undervalue that, right? So what can we do now? What is our ecosystem worth at the moment? So we have a shared ledger, right? We can make payments internationally in no time. We can transact value, we can transact instruments, everything that we can tokenize, we can transact within a very short amount of time, and that de-risks our financial system dramatically. So what was the next step that we actually came up with in that community? So we invented tokens, right? Again, it's a big thing. It's not just, okay, so we have now ERC20 and we can create token contracts. It really allows, or allowed for the first time, anyone to raise capital. And let that sink in. I mean, it was so difficult to actually get access to capital markets and raise capital for your startup, for whatever. I mean, all that negative aspects of ICOs, we still achieved another milestone in creating open financial ecosystems. We are able to raise capital on a shared ledger, keep track of who owns those tokens, and transact those tokens within no time when compared to previous infrastructure, right? It's a big thing. It's really a big thing, and we can kind of be proud of that achievement. So what was the next step of what we did when creating that open financial ecosystem? So we went from ICOs to STOs, huh? what was the actual, let's say, infrastructure piece or building block that we added to that infrastructure? It's compliance. And it's all enabled by the programmable smart contracts and money that allows us now to easily add compliance rules to those tokens. But in the end, it's nothing else than, okay, we have those tokens, we add compliance to it, and we're now in the regulated world suddenly, right? So now we actually are able to raise capital on regulated markets. And again, you know, in those communities where we usually, talk with each other and stuff, it's kind of already almost normal for us. Okay, compliance, security token offerings, everyone does it nowadays, right? But let's again think about, it's again a big thing, right? Just recently in Europe, Societe Generale issued on public blockchain, on public Ethereum, the first regulated debt instrument. It's a big thing. It's another milestone towards open financial ecosystems, right? A year ago, no one would actually believe that at any time on a public network, on a public ledger, you would issue regulated financial instruments, right? It has happened just recently, right? And then not just by someone, it's Societe Generale, which is a big bank in Europe, right? So, okay, so another milestone. Now, the question is, are we there now? Are we there yet? I mean, it seems like security token offerings is securities, right? I mean, that's what finance is all about, issuing securities. So the answer is we're still not there yet, right? There needs to be some other building blocks that are other milestones in creating that infrastructure that we need for truly open financial ecosystems. Huh? And I want to talk about just two main building blocks that we are missing yet, and that we are actually working on to bring to blockchain finance. So, security token offerings, right? It's financial instruments in some sense. It's securities. But this is all about securities that we need to know to be able to issue all kinds of financial instruments on the blockchain. It actually only covers parts of it. Now, what are the missing elements? So think of, not sure if any one of you is in the financial space, but let's say you hold a token from a security token offering. What do you actually know about that token? You know the token, the address of the token contract, right? And you know actually a price of the token traded at some exchange. Well, that's all you really know about the token. But the token actually represents a fraction of a financial instrument, right? Now what is that financial instrument? You actually have no idea. Well, obviously you can go back to the offering, to some website where you actually see, well, that those were the terms, that's the idea that I want to work on with the money raised, right? But there is no real facility of actually encoding what that financial instrument really is. There are projects out here like Dharma, for instance, in the DeFi world, right? Which do a great job in providing that infrastructure for issuing debt instruments. But the actual terms of that instrument, the actual instrument is encoded in a smart contract, in the terms contract of that protocol. There is no way that will scale if we have a multitude of different protocols being out there in that open ecosystem infrastructure when everyone encodes his terms in his own proprietary ways. You'd actually have to go back to the contract and decode, reverse engineer the logic that's being built in there, right? So what are financial instruments really? When we understand financial instruments, financial assets, we know what the missing pieces are, right? In general, again, finance is really all about financial instruments. It's about originating, it's about issuing financial instruments, it's about custody for financial instruments, it's about compliance for financial instruments, it's about transacting, exchanging tokens or securities representing financial instruments, and it's about analyzing financial instruments, right? Well, what is a financial instrument? On a certain level, you can say it's two things. It's composed of a term sheet, call it just a term sheet, a prospectus, with which you actually go out to advertise your offering that you're making. So let's say it's a term sheet, and it's a way to invest in the instrument. It's a way to represent who owns the instrument actually. Now, we mentioned already token contracts. ERC-20, that was one of the milestones for blockchain finance. What an ERC-20 does, it really keeps track of who are the addresses that actually bought the token and how many did they buy. Now you can link that to the value of the token at a certain exchange, right? But what you actually do when you invest in a financial asset is, obviously you want to participate in the up and downside of the change of value of the instrument, but what you actually do is you buy the right to receive the future payments out of that instrument. In a debt instrument, it's simple, right? So what will you receive? What do you actually want to receive with those tokens? I want to get my share of the interest payments. I want to get my share of the repayment of the debt instrument. And it's the same thing with all financial instruments. You actually invest, you actually buy the right to receive those future cash flow out of the financial asset. Huh? Now, we see all these projects where we're actually building security token offering platforms, we all develop some form of actually routing the payments to the actual token holders, right? Now, the problem with that is, if we don't have those proceedings of the instrument encoded in the actual smart contract, we will not be able, in the next step, to actually start pooling those tokens, pooling them again back to funds, where actually I, as an investor in a fund, want to receive a share of the pooled future cash flows. On the other hand, if we actually start agreeing on, let's say, let's add something to those ERC-20 tokens that actually makes the token holders receive their fractions of the payments out of the agreement, we ship with each token not only the ownership in the asset, but actually the right to receive all those future payments. And not only the right, we channel those payments directly to him. There is one thing, we need to extend the claims, we need to extend the ERC-20 tokens. And the other thing is, we need to link those token contracts to an actual term sheet of the agreement. Imagine you hold your token of a debt instrument. Now you know where the token contract is, and you just pull out the term sheet of that token contract or an associated smart contract. You can suddenly now list that term sheet on the exchange where the actual token is actually traded. Everyone can see, what is it that I'm actually investing in? Or the risk management in an institution that actually holds those tokens or instruments, it just pulls out the data and performs this risk analysis. Pricing engines use the same data. There is one finally golden copy of the actual term sheet that actually backs the financial, right? So those are just two building blocks that we see crucial for actually blockchain finance to develop in order to be able to create, to really develop that vision of truly open financial ecosystem. All right, so there is one, the good story about it is, so financial assets, you could think of that, all that diversity that is out there, right? So there are thousands of different asset types and instrument classes, but really it comes down to about 30 patterns that represent all kinds of financial instruments that exist in the world. So there is this project ACTUS, which is a not-for-profit. It's a standard body that actually develops that standardized representations of all those term sheets and the logic that derive the future payments from those financial instruments. And it boils down to about 30 patterns that you can now implement as smart contracts, right? So it makes finance much easier than it is nowadays, right? What else? So what is the next milestone that we are working on in ACTUS Protocol? It's about adding those rights to receive future cash flows to ERC-20, and it's about adding the term sheets to the financial assets that live and are deployed on the chain. Those are two crucial next steps that we have to engage in when we actually want to create those open ecosystems. That's our agenda. That's actually an open standard, right? Everyone can just take it and use it and implement it themselves. Obviously, because we have built up all that capability at atpar, the company that actually developed the ACTUS Protocol, we are building a platform that allows you now suddenly not only to issue a loan or to issue equity, but to issue all kinds of financial instruments because they build on the same standardized representation of those terms of the. In the next step, having that capability, you're able to pool those assets, you're able to channel the funds of pools actually to your investors who invested in the pool of assets and not an individual. So that's some stuff that we are working on. I'm finishing up here because I see people getting nervous. So check out the resources. We're happy to get your feedback. As I said, Actus is a not-for-profit in the US. You find all those resources online. Maybe what I also want to stress, we have an EIP out there on actually a claims token standard that is an enhancement of ERC20. We would love to see the community kind of converge on a standard for those extended ERC20 tokens. Thank you for your attention.